What's going on, guys, and welcome to July's episode of Game of the Month, the show where we pick a game at random every month, and at the end of the month we talk about it. My name's Seth, and joining me today is Chevy. Chevy, we just did a couple episodes, but the last one we just did was Plus Club, where we talked about whatever those games were, Endling and Call of Duty and stuff like that. Since then, how you doing? Are you excited to talk about Final Fantasy 16, which was your pick for Game of the Month this month, which means we'll be moving into the next month, which is August. We are in it already, but I know this is delayed, and we'll be picking that at random. But how you doing? Are you excited to talk about this?
Doing okay. Did not play as much as I would have liked, but story of my life.
Last like 2.5 months has been that's been the story of my life.
But I don't know if I'm excited because I have to restrain myself to talk about this game. So
yeah.
But we'll see how it goes.
And with that mentioned, for anybody watching this, it will be called a review on YouTube, because I call all of Plus Club and Game of the Month episodes reviews, because we are reviewing it. I want to be very clear, though, if you're coming into this thinking this is a full-on review, this is our impressions of Final Fantasy 16 in July. Neither of us beat it. We wanted to. We didn't have the time to do it, but we have played it. We'll be discussing it. So, yeah, that's where we're coming from. So more so it's like an impressions video, but I just want to clear that up for anybody who's not from here and doesn't understand, what we do when it comes to this. But we will be talking about Final Fantasy 16. Glad you're doing good. The struggle to play games is real, because in summer things are busy, and I'm on the same page. I'm also doing well, though, feeling a little more energized today to talk about this. So I'm happy about that, because I just feel so tired lately. And yeah, so you picked Final Fantasy 16, and we'll talk about it in a sec, but we're going to pick a randomly picked Game of the Month for August, which we are already in, so we should just jump into that ASAP. For anybody who doesn't know how this works, we have a wheel. The wheel has a bunch of back burner games on it from a list. Those games, for anybody listening, are Halo Infinite, Temtem, Baldur's Gate 3, topical because the game just came out and I would love for it to land on that, World War Z, Monster Hunter Rise, Outriders still, Evil Dead still, Back 4 Blood still, No Man's Sky because the game goes on forever, Final Fantasy 14, Age of Empires 4, Remnant 2 because I would love to be able to sit down and play that, and Age of Wonders 4 because I don't feel like I got to play that as much as I wanted to when I was playing it. So those are the games. Whatever it lands on, we will be prioritizing and playing throughout August, along with our games on PlayStation Plus, which are Dreams, Death's Door, and PGA Tour 2K23. Before we spin the wheel, is there anything you'd like to say, anything you're hoping for after you just picked Final Fantasy 16?
I would take the two recent games, being Baldur's Gate 3 and Remnant 2, because I'd like to play them. Other than that, I need to play Final Fantasy 14. I just haven't been. So
Big excuse.
That would force me to hop in. Not that I need that much forcing, but throwing a bunch of games to play every month kind of cuts into free time as well. So
sure, especially when it's already limited.
Yeah,
but yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I'm hoping for Remnant 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. I almost pulled rank, and I was going to say, we're just going to play Remnant 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 this month to make it easier for myself, but that's not fun. That's not how I like to do it on the channel. I only do that sometimes when I'm like, I need to play this right now, especially games with that could get spoiled for me. I'm like, I need to play this right now. So we're going to do a classic and just spin the wheel. So with that, let's find out what our game of the month for August is. I'm going to spin the wheel in 3, 2, 1, and go. It is spinning, and it's spinning fast, but now it's starting to slow down, and we are starting to creep. We have passed Baldur's Gate 3, and we might be landing on Outriders. Interesting.
Okay.
All right, so Outriders will be our game of the month for August, which is interesting because there was an expansion that came out for it, and I haven't touched it. So that will give me a reason to hop back in and explore that. What do you think about Outriders?
I never beat it, so maybe this time.
maybe it's surprisingly longer than it seems like it would be. I remember first time I played through it and beat it. I thought I was almost done with it, and then I played for hours after that, and hours and hours. I was like, oh shit! So it's a pretty big game.
Yeah. Honestly, the only concern I have is it's summer, and that game does make my graphics card pump some heat into my room.
Oh, so. Yeah. Well, summer's fucked, and just gotta deal with it.
Yep.
All right, so we'll be playing Outriders in August. I gotta make sure I got that downloaded, and yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of Outriders, and don't tell us too much because we'll be talking about it at the end of the month for Game of the Month. All right, so the game we played in August was Final Fantasy 16. If you didn't get a chance to play Final Fantasy 16, it is the 16th main entry of the Final Fantasy series. I'm trying to be very careful in how I say that because I know somebody's going to be like, that's not the 16th one. It's the 16th main entry. I know there's like 50 of them.
This is the 16th numbered.
Yeah. Without going into the story too much, because we can't do a spoiler talk here because we're in different parts of the game and neither of us beat it. Basically, it chronicles 3 different eras or timelines of the main character Clive's life during strife in a world where 2 continents are at war, with a lot of different intersecting factors and characters, and a main event that happens in the beginning that sets Clive on his journey from what his life was once to where it goes now. Trying to be really vague here for anybody who's maybe playing through it and doesn't want to hear anything about it because I don't know where you're at, you don't know where I'm at. We'll keep it vague. Yeah, but it's a third-person action RPG. It's not a turn-based game, as much as people are still discussing that, and Final Fantasy hasn't been for a while. And yeah, it leans into action quite a bit. It has a lot of combo systems. Later in the game, not too big of a spoiler, you can switch between icons, icon powers, which I just got to, so I'll have plenty to say on that. And yeah, it features heavy story, a lot of cinematics, a medieval fantasy world, gear leveling, big giant kaiju style icon fights, and yeah, sprawling adventure, with a lot of stuff that I still haven't accessed yet, but we'll talk about it anyway. We both played this game and are going to continue to play it, hopefully.
I
So
plan on beating it.
let's yeah, same. Let's start off with where you're at so people know where we are in terms of where, as much as we can talk about, and hopefully no one spoils anything for us in the comments. So yeah, where you at vaguely without any main well, unless you want to give a percentage, but where you at, and then yeah, jump into your impressions.
I can give a couple tidbits. So according to the PlayStation, I'm 55% through the game, and to give some context clues on where I am, I'm about to enter a large geode.
All right.
That's about as much as I can say. And I went through the desert, if that also helps. So.
And for anybody who wants to know where I'm at, I am a little past the second icon fight with Garuda. It's the second one, right? Garuda? Mm-hmm. Or is that the first one? I'm past Garuda.
It's technically the second one.
Yeah, I got past the conclusion of Garuda. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
So
Last time I checked with you, you were at the precursor part.
yeah, no, I'm past that now. So yeah, moving forward, and I got my ability to swap abilities, which changes combat quite a bit. Anyway, impressions.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I guess to kind of throw out there is this being, Square's baby, basically. The game is beautiful. Square has always kind of prided themselves on making top-end graphics games when they do, to their detriment with Final Fantasy XIV on its initial launch. But even still, that is kind of their thing with their flagship title. I think it looks really good, and on the PlayStation 5, it mostly plays very well. I am unfortunately one of the people who does get some stuttering from time to time,
And I don't.
yeah, but it's not enough to ruin the experience for me. But it is unfortunate that even this far into its launch, I still have to occasionally deal with that. Yeah, let's see. The music is fantastic as well. Ahsoken just does not miss. he does some weird stuff sometimes, mostly in 14. But in this, he kind of went back to his roots and with like some more classic Final Fantasy style music. He's really good at making like really grand pieces too when it calls for it. So specifically during like icon fights and stuff like that, you just have these amazing tracks that are playing alongside those fights.
I really love the variety of music in the game already, and I'm not that far into it. There's a song for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's a lot of games in general, but a lot of JRPGs will run into this thing where like a certain zone has a song and just keeps repeating over and over and over again. And if you go to different parts of that zone, different things happen. That song just keeps repeating over and over and over again. And this game, like I feel like if I walk into a grassy field of this section of the game, it's got its own song. And then if I go over here into the woods, it's got its own song. Like there's like so much songs in this that are all really well done. But yeah, then the diversity of his ability to make music is also impressive because so many of the songs work for the scenes, but then and a lot of them are like really chill and really like atmospheric. But then, like you said, with the main events, the bigger events that happen, the more emotional events, and then the icon fights, the songs are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
They're like every time something big is happening in this game, I'm like fucking pumped. I'm like, holy shit. And of course, a lot of that is Square Enix and their visuals, but particle effects. But
Not for everyone, but yeah.
the music is very good at enhancing everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're not talking about 14, but you know, he makes music in 14 as well, and so like usually in an MMO, I get to a point where like I turn the music down, and in 14 I just keep it turned up.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll play an MMO that has like a great soundtrack that I'll even listen to in other games sometimes. But a lot of times it's pretty generic sounding, and so I'll listen to my own music or something. But and I'm not even nearly as far as you in 14, obviously. But even the songs I've heard, especially in the later expansions, I definitely liked what I heard. So the dude's definitely got a expansive repertoire of sounds he's good at using in different ways. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, it's pretty great. He really let loose after Shadowbringers as well. But anyways, get back onto 16. The music, like I said, is really good, especially in the icon fights. This game also features multiple different types of combat, which is interesting. So you have your normal, as you're playing as Clive, like third-person action game, but then when you get into these icon fights, every single one of them is a different experience that plays different from each other because they're meant to be more so like interactive cutscenes than they are to be like necessarily challenging fights. And I kind of dig that because as much as I'm okay with just sitting there watching a cutscene, it does feel a little bit better to be participating a little bit. So
yeah, it's a little bit more than an interactive cutscene because I think interactive cutscene works better. Not arguing against what you're saying, but the QuickTime events, which I even think are great in this, but for as good as a QuickTime event can be, those feel like interactive cutscenes. But the icon fights kind of feel like they're simplified gameplay because they're trying to confine you into something that has to happen as a spectacle. So it's kind of like a cutscene, but it kind of reminds me of that part in Metal Gear Solid 4 when Rex fights Ray and you get to control it, but you can only kind of strafe left and right and then hit him every once in a while. And so it's more of the spectacle, but you get to press the button and see him hit them, and it feels way more gratifying. Even with the second icon fight that I did, you can dodge. I didn't, but it's like there's a dodge button, and I'm like, okay, I could like play this out smart, but I was like, fuck that, and I would just leap across and just hit him, and then as soon as the cutscene happened, I would leap across, start hitting him and pounding him again, and so it's a little more satisfying than kind of hitting a button during a cutscene. But I get the sentiment. I just I don't want to not give it enough credit.
Sure, that's fair. Speaking of the QTEs, I know they're not everyone's thing, but I do think they're handled pretty well in this game, especially when you're doing like your mid bosses or sometimes even like main boss fights. To use an early one to keep it as spoiler free as possible. It was in the demo, so I think it's fair to talk about. When you fight the Dragoon, or not the Dragoon, the ninja?
I think it's a dragon.
It's the ninja I'm thinking of, though. There's a part where the first QT sequence happens, and the ninja does typical ninja stuff, disappears, comes, you block, whatever. The second time, that it feels like it's about to happen again, and about halfway through the QTE sequences, Clive's like, not this time or whatever, and then it changes all of a sudden. So it's not even, you kind of get fooled into thinking you're going to just repeat it again, and you're not, because you're also experiencing a cinematic.
That's one thing I appreciate about the quick time events is that they're not repeated. And I'm not trying to talk up QTEs, but I think they did a really good job at it, because you're doing this fight that's really fun. I love the combat in this game, but then they want to do something cinematic, but they don't want to take you out of the gameplay. And so they do that, and you hit square or wherever the hell you got to hit, and then like you start fighting again. But then if they do it again, they're not going to do the same thing. And a lot of games are guilty of doing that. This game respects you more than that, and they put the time in to make every quick time event feel like it's progressing the fight in a story way. There's characteristics to this fight more than you're just in an open area hitting the guy until their health bar goes down. It's like now you're seeing a scene where they're trying to block you, and you're hitting at the right time and knocking their blade out of the way or whatever. Or with the Garuda fight, there's some cool stuff. But parts where you got to mash the button. And it's funny because you're watching a scene that's intense, and you're just mashing square, and you're going to get through it. But the mix of just mashing square while watching this really well executed cinematic happening, I don't know, you feel more invested in the cutscene you're watching, essentially. So
for sure.
I don't mind the QTs in this. I actually like them.
Yeah, I also think during a lot of these scenes too, they do some really fun stuff, like with quote unquote camera angles. Like you'll get these cool like zoom ins or like angled shots and stuff like that, because obviously you're not as in control of your character at the time. They can kind of play around with like making it more cinematic feeling, which is a lot of fun. The game does have a lot of particle effects. That is to be expected. It is a Square Enix game. I like them, but I do know that is not everyone's thing. But just be warned, they're in the game. Big time. I think one of my favorite things about the game, and it is not to, pat the PS5 on the back too much, but thanks to the PS5's loading speed, this game just goes from sequence to sequence.
It's so satisfying.
No pausing.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. Like you do not play very many games that can do this. So
it's kind of crazy how long this game is, and there's a lot of cinematics, a lot of stuff you can do, but the time it takes to beat the game, if you're just not running through it, is pretty long. Isn't it like 40, 50 hours, something like that?
I think it's like 30, 40, but yeah.
30, 40? But that's not including load times in this. Pretty much, that's just pure game, which is kind of impressive because other games might have, except for a lot of open world games have streaming technologies that kind of help with that as well, which is nothing new, but something worth noting. But with a game like this, where you would expect loading times between zones, between cinematics, stuff like that, this game is like super seamless in a lot of the things it does, and so there's quite a bit of game there if you think about it. Also, I'm glad you brought that up, because this game does a lot of, every time I think of Final Fantasy and transitions, I always think back to when I first played Final Fantasy VIII for the first time when I was a kid, and seeing that CGI cutscene transition into gameplay, and it fucking blew my mind. And so even nowadays, when I see that done smoothly, I'm really impressed. But this game does it really smoothly. It's crazy. Like I'll just be like playing, all of a sudden a cutscene starts or a cutscene ends, and you're just like right back into gameplay. They do a really good job on seamlessly keeping the flow of the game moving forward.
One of my favorite things is you'll be in the middle of a cutscene, which is all rendered in engine. It's happening in real time. So, which is also impressive, because a lot of that is usually pre-rendered to help save resources. This game's just like, we'll do it in real time. But you'll be in the middle of that, and then the UI just shows up. They're still talking, they're still moving, the UI shows up, and you start playing. Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm trying not to get too spoiled to it because I know most people aren't going to be doing that, but it is such a treat. The voice acting in the game is phenomenal. Even characters that do not matter have good voice actors. It is so cool. I have not once heard someone talk about, I don't know about that. Even though I have heard some people say that Sid's voice doesn't fit, which I don't agree with. But
I like that they picked a voice that's so distinct. I forgot that actor's name. I've seen him in movies before, but he's got a very distinct voice. It's very, I mean, you've heard it.
Also, just smokes like crazy in the game.
Yeah, but even regardless of that, his character looks, I get where they're coming from because his character kind of looks like a very Final Fantasy swashbuckler type dude.
Yeah.
And he's got this really gruff voice, but the dialogue works with the character's look. And his action, everything about him works. He just has a voice you wouldn't expect. But in real life, there's all sorts of people you look at, and then sometimes they'll talk, and you're like, whoa, you got a way different voice than I expect you to have.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. So, I could see somebody going like, wow, I don't really like his voice that much. But for anyone to have an issue with, his character and that voice, well, that's just how he is. And the actor's playing the part just fine. I actually think it adds a layer to his character that's kind of interesting having a voice like that.
Bro, I could listen to that guy talk all day.
Yeah, he does a great job.
Clive, the main character as well. Really, really good range comes off.
I love that Clive is not the typical Final Fantasy character who's just sad boy brooding. He's more angry brooding, which is a nice change of pace because so many characters in Final Fantasy games are just like, oh man, things are rough and I don't know what's going on.
But he also exists just as a normal person and when you're doing the normal everyday things too.
Yeah. I just like that his brooding is a little more anger filled. He's also a little more self-deprecating in terms of feeling bad about certain things, possibly wanting to die, stuff like that. And it just makes for a more interesting character than what I expect from games like this, Final Fantasy. So yeah, I've been liking his character, and I think that the voice actor has been doing a great, well, all the voice actors, but I don't know if he's doing all three of them, but he's been doing a great job. But Clive's a really interesting main character for a Final Fantasy.
I think my favorite thing though is when he does get emotional. That's honestly kind of a test I think for a lot of voice actors is to kind of turn on the emotion real quick, and he sells it. It's awesome. So.
Yeah, it's a mix between the voice actor and then the director accepting whatever, because sometimes you'll play older games and you'll hear a performance from somebody and you're like, man, that wasn't that good. But then
or
sometimes
weird
you hear
cuts.
Yeah.
But
then sometimes you'll see those same voice actors in other games and they sound much better. And it's like, oh, so the person who was in charge of directing you on this was just like, yeah, it's fine, and just they didn't take it serious. So and then other people might take the quality of the game more seriously.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that here. I also think it's interesting in case you're unaware, this game was made with English in mind first and foremost, which is really interesting, very strange. And the Japanese dub of it doesn't match the lips apparently, so that's kind of a fun little tidbit to know there. So they were definitely aiming for a Western audience with this game.
Yeah, imagine if a Western made game came out and it was made for Japanese first, and then you're playing it and you're like, the fuck's that'd be so weird. So I understand anybody who would speak Japanese and be like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, though apparently it's doing just fine over there, so that's good to hear.
It's doing fine everywhere. I saw yesterday that is being played by 13 or 16% of all PS5 players, and 68% of that is Western audiences. But a huge chunk of that obviously is also Japanese audiences. But it did really well here, which is I think what they're hoping for, because they westernized it in some ways and made the combat more actiony. But just interesting to see that
for sure. Where do I want to go from here? I'm going to go with the tone of the game. They went with a mature tone, and in fact, I think this is the first Final Fantasy outside of Type 0 that is rated M. And Final Fantasies have always had dark stories, but this one actually portrays the dark story with visuals as well, and
There's-
some pretty serious scenes.
There's blood and some sexual suggestion. Not quite nudity, but suggested nudity.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. Suggested nudity.
And I appreciate that because, and not because I'm like, oh, I like blood and nudity, but more so like, it's just not afraid to like tell a gritty story.
Yeah.
It's not hiding behind anything. It's just
It's also
allowing
not, it's
itself.
not also like overly gritty. Like they're like, this is gonna be the Final Fantasy that's dark as hell.
Exactly.
And like, so it's like overly sexual, or there's like tits everywhere, or Pierce like fuck nonstop, or like Pierce getting murdered.
Yeah, but it's treating it like adults are playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It in a weird way feels kind of influenced by The Witcher. Like people who played The Witcher were like, just slightly influenced by it a bit to make a Final Fantasy that had like a more adult fantasy tone to it.
I could see that. I also, see the occasional comparison like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, but
Sure.
that comes with the political storytelling as well.
Yeah, I think we just had an influx of adult fantasy there for a little bit, and I think they were influenced by it. But also, without taking too much from it, it's obviously inspired by every Final Fantasy that came before it because it shares a lot of DNA with those games. So,
Yeah, for sure. I also appreciate there is a movable in this game because it wasn't in 15, and it was really sad.
yeah, what the fuck, dude? 15, I love that game, but there's parts of that game I'm confused by. But,
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, the studio isn't around anymore, so.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, Forsaken buried him.
Forspoken, yeah,
that.
I forgot about that game.
Let's see. This game also does a pretty good job of dealing with the haptic feedback in the PS5 controller. There's a lot of moments where the controller is doing just subtle little knocks at your hands.
I noticed that this morning when I was playing. I forgot what happened, but I forgot that they made vibration stuff for the PS5 controller. And so I was playing and the controller went like this vibration up the controller. I'm like, oh, they actually like programmed it
Yeah.
the way everyone should be doing.
They also, I'm actually going to give them a huge shout out here because one of my least favorite things on playing PlayStation games is I think the speaker in the controller is obnoxious in every game. The way they use it, they just go full volume and here's the sound effect. This game literally does a small amount of sound when you do casting spells. You get a secondary sound from the controller that makes the sound effect of the spell go off at the same time as the TV. So you kind of get this like a little bit enhanced, but without paying attention, you honestly might not notice. It's very subtle, and I appreciate that because I otherwise would be shutting that control or the speaker off real quick. So,
Yeah, I got it's probably the best speaker that's been in a controller so far is on the DualSense. But yeah, a lot of people just like the vibration functionality that a lot of people forgot about. People get lazy with it, and so they'll just like
on and off.
So it's like route fucking audio right through it. I like sometimes in games where like you'll be playing the game and then someone over the radio talks through your controller because
Sure.
it gives that radio sound. I think it'd be kind of cool. I don't know if they're gonna do it or not, but it'd be kind of neat for like Phasmophobia when it comes out for console. Like had the ghost talk through your controller. That'd be kind of cool.
As long as it's not 100% volume, right?
Sure.
So.
Yeah. No, yeah. There's plenty of games I'll play where it just starts doing a bunch of crazy shit. The controller, like, well, that's fucking distracting, and then go and turn it off.
Yeah, and in this, especially if you're charging spells, you get like these sound effect cues, and they are subtly coming through the controller. It really helps in combat. Like I really can't understate like that they respected, using that, and they're not being obnoxious about it. So
I think it's kind of an example of a lot of the thoughtfulness that went into this game. Nothing in this game feels like they just need to do it.
yeah.
Like, wow, let me just make the game, or should we have audio in the control? Yeah, just throw it in there. Like everything feels like it was intentional and thought out, and so I appreciate about this game.
Yeah, for sure. This game does not feature an open world, though most Final Fantasy don't. A lot of them are zone based, if not all of them. Some of them just feel a little more open world. This game is definitely more akin to like except for 15.
15 is the only open world one I think there is. Otherwise, it's world maps and linear areas.
Yeah, you just usually have like a huge world map, and in this one you kind of do, but it's similar to 10 where it's just like teleport points.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't mind. I have seen a couple people say that feels a little too linear for them. I mean, to each their own. I think the zones are pretty big.
I got enough open-ended exploration games I can play. I actually kind of like that this game is a little more linear because without feeling too confined, because I have options on where I want to go, but I do like that it's just a solid story that's sending me through it.
Yeah, agreed. I also appreciate that they take a hint from their other game, Final Fantasy 14, and the quest markers have different meanings, so you know the importance of your quests. So unless you're just doing everything, and then you're gonna click them all, but like if you're just trying to get through the game and not miss out on like important things, there's the main story marker, and then there are quest markers with exclamation points that are basically like, this will unlock something for you. That's straight out of Final Fantasy 14, so I instantly recognized it. But in case you don't know, that's what that is. If you just see a normal quest marker, you can skip it if you want to, though it does enrich the lore. I would do them if I were you. What else? I think the only thing I really haven't talked about is combat. And this is probably going to be where I don't gush as much. The combat's good. I'm just going to say that right now. It's good. I don't love it, though.
I love it.
I have almost no reason to switch stances most of the times because I think the moves in all the icons I've unlocked so far are meh. I haven't unlocked them all yet, and there are a couple that I think are okay. But your first stance, the Phoenix stance, I really just think it kind of hits all the marks I need when I'm in combat. And close second with some of the moves would be the third one. I don't want to mention what it is for the sake of spoilers, but it has a couple like slow heavy hits, which I like having because I like, if you get a good stagger and you want to get like a nice chunk of damage in, right? I don't like Garuda like at all. And then my other thing is like the circle button, which is your movement move. With Phoenix, it's the dash, which is like just real convenient when you're trying to like get into combat, switch targets and stuff like that. That changes for every icon as well, and I think all three of the other ones I have are not good. So I am looking forward to unlocking more icons and hopefully getting more moves so that I have some choice. And I need to unlock some with skill points so that I have more choices even with the ones I have, because I don't have the third and fourth moves unlocked for anybody yet. So I need to do that first. So just as an early impression of the combat, it's fine, but I have like almost no need to switch other than when I'm bursting through a stagger. Otherwise, I pretty much just stay in Phoenix all the time.
Yeah, I don't know about needing to switch, but so far I do switch because I'm able to do two main abilities and then knock out another two main abilities while the other ones are cooling down.
Yeah.
I also do like the pull move with Garuda because sometimes there'll be a group of dudes I want to get one out of there, or like I'll knock a dude and he goes flying, I want to pull him back, start hitting him again. I like the amount of tools. I get that the Phoenix one is I think the most straightforward one, so like it's easy to fall back on that one. I do the same, but the Garuda one offers some new ways to play that you can kind of complement and combo with, that when I first unlocked it I was like, okay, do I just switch over to this and play as that and then switch over to that and play as this? But now I'm like switching between them as I'm doing things in the moment, so it gives me tools that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and I do switch, if the occasion calls for it for certain moves and stuff like that. But I'm like 95% of the time I'm in Phoenix. So
yeah, especially if I like stagger someone, I just like go through all my fucking abilities.
And,
boom, boom, boom.
And I
boom,
do that
boom.
too.
Yeah.
That's basically the best time to do that.
Yeah.
There's another thing which I don't know if you have yet, so I'm going to not say too much, but
Okay.
you will definitely be using it then. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it there.
Yeah, I'm not even
But
knowing what you're talking about. So.
yeah, so And so yeah, I switch in that case for sure. And the third icon, like I said, has that like slower, heavy hitting moves, which I like to either lead in or end with if I'm doing what I can't talk about. The fourth icon is definitely for aggressive up close playstyles, which I'm not. So I haven't even really played around with it too much because of that. I think you'll like it, I'm sure, because you probably enjoy being up close and jumping around.
That's what I do.
I spend a lot of time charging spells, getting their stagger down, jumping in and get a couple hits at back out to do more spell casting. So I do a lot of range stuff. So, which probably makes my fight slower. I'm aware of that, but I don't play a lot of third-person action games anyways. So it's a little out of my comfort zone. Yeah, the dog Torgal is a cool addition. I hate controlling him, so I am using the ring for him. So he auto does his moves because I was a little too much multitasking for me at that point.
I don't mind it, but I do have the ring on right now. But if I get a ring that will benefit me more than just having auto on, I'll probably switch it out because I didn't mind being more hands-on with him. But yeah, I didn't have anything that really was going to be much better than just letting him auto fight anyway. The only thing that's annoying about having that ring on is because he's constantly doing abilities, your guy's always talking to him nonstop in combat. It's kind of annoying to hear him just constantly talking to Torgal. But I guess it's just how efficient that ring is. But yeah, I like that they allow you to make the choice to either turn on an auto attack with him or turn that off at the cost of taking up one of your gear slots.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair compromise.
Yeah, I'm not using any stat rings anyways, so I'm using EXP, Gil, and Torgal.
Yeah, I don't know what I have on, but yeah, one of them's the Torgal one. And if I get something better, I'll definitely switch it because I don't mind it. But
well, there are a ton of accessories, so you will have your pick. Yeah. Let's see. Side content so far has been minimal, but it is there, and I appreciate that. And I do know it expands more as you get further in the game, and there's New Game Plus, so I know there's more to look forward to. But the hunt system, which I enjoyed in Final Fantasy 12, and I enjoyed in Final Fantasy 14, I enjoy in this as well. It's a lot of fun to go fight like some super hard mob that gives you just a ton of gil for succeeding in it. Plus, this game's reputation system, which allows you to get more rewards, is also pretty cool. I don't think you're quite there yet. I don't think that's much of a spoiler, though. I don't know if I have a whole lot more that I could say that isn't around the story. So I'll just say so far the story has been good. I like the direction it's going. It's been entertaining the whole time. They do a lot of cutscenes and voice acting, which I like. But ultimately, the way the game wraps up and ends is going to tell me if it's a great story or a good story or even sometimes a bad story. Endings can ruin stuff. So, but I kind of doubt that because I haven't heard nobody complain about this game.
I haven't had anything spoiled for me with this game, which is really surprising.
Same.
But I also haven't heard anything even mediocre about this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, everyone who's played it or has finished it has just been praising it. So,
Yeah.
I'm really kind of excited to be able to beat it eventually and see what I think of the ending because I haven't heard shit about it. So, like, I don't even know how it's gonna go.
Well, and even to use Final Fantasy 15 as an example, the overall story was okay, but the ending kind of really made that game, I think. So,
Yep. Ending will definitely make or break something.
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, it's an okay Final Fantasy, but then you get that ending, you're like, no, that was great. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, I'm enjoying it. That was a long impressions. I apologize, but I have thoughts when it comes to these kind of games. So
Yeah. I probably won't go into all the details because I kind of chimed in there a lot, but just a couple things that are on my mind in terms of where I'm at in the game after just getting past Garuda. We already went over the music, but the music's fantastic, so I'll just reiterate that again. Really enjoying that. I love the setting and the theming of this game. It's nice to play a Final Fantasy that's fantasy again, and the fantasy they've chose is really cool. I like the character design. I like the clothing and armor aesthetic. I like that it still maintains a lot of the Final Fantasy stuff, but still also just kind of seems like a more darker fantasy world, which is refreshing. Yeah. So yeah, the world's really cool. Character's really cool. I like every character. I thought Benedicta is interesting as a character. So yeah, everyone they've introduced so far has been someone I want to know more about. Also, one thing we didn't talk about that I think is really cool, and I think more games need to do it. This game, I forgot what it's called. This game has a system where you can press pause, and everything that's relevant to what's happening right now in front of you, you can deep dive further into it to see more about that character or the things that have already been established in the story so far. So you're never at a point where you take a break for a couple days or a week or a month or whatever, you come back and you're like, who the fuck's this character again? You can literally hit pause and read up on everything right there. And so a lot of games will have a codex. I think this game does have a codex as well.
Yep.
But a lot of games have a codex when you meet a character, and it starts like, there's question marks, and then this character will pop up on there. You can hit that and read it. You got to go to the menu to do that and stuff like that. Those are never that interesting to me unless I'm really trying to deep dive. But this game having this like optional smart system where like during a cutscene you're like, wait, what the fuck's going on? You can hit pause right there, and you can start checking this really well implemented UI of relevant information. It's a really smart system that I don't feel like I always need to use, but it's there, and I love options. And I think more games, specifically long running games, JRPGs, open world games, stuff like that, should implement stuff like this. It's kind of a really cool, I don't know if another game's done it. I
think Final Fantasy has done it once before, but it wasn't as good.
Yeah. Well, this game has set a standard for me on if anybody wants to attempt this again, and I think they should, this is where you should start. Yeah, it's a really good system.
And I agree with that, and that's been just the general sentiment I've seen online as well. People love it.
It's a great system. Yeah, it's really smart. That's everything with this game, though, is really smart. Like I said earlier, everything feels intentional, but also like I think the menus are smart. They're clean. They work really well. The UI is smart. You can tell these people make MMOs because like anytime relevant information is put on the screen in front of you, it's put in a way that's like either exciting or feels like you did something. Like when you beat an icon, it'll just go right on the screen. It says someone was slain or whatever, and the fight's over at that point. A cutscene's about to happen, and it feels like you accomplished something. But even when you enter like a new zone, it'll like say the name on the screen or whatever. It feels like you're entering a zone in MMO. So there's all these little things that just aesthetically are very pleasing. Very intentional thought into those things that I think works really well. So yeah, really like that. It's not the highest graphical prowess I've ever seen in a game, but the game is really good looking, really clean looking. But I think the artistic design of the world is really great looking. I'm constantly just kind of like looking at the forest or looking across the field and seeing stuff in the distance, or just the design of these even linear paths. I'm constantly just like, I love this world. It's a really cool world to explore. And it's nice, too, because even early on in the game, I'm feeling like that. So I assume it's only going to get better because I brought this up before on the channel. But I remember playing 15, and I was like, this game's janky. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this game's got no anti-aliasing. Combat is like I'm teleporting around a lot. I'm just driving around with a boy band, like talking a lot. Like, the fuck is going on? There's this weird dude who's following me around who's just like a goofball. And then I ended up beating the game when I got more linear. And I'm like, that was a really good fucking story. I feel, horrible about certain things in that story. That villain who I thought was a goofball for a reason. That guy had nothing to lose. And he's actually like one of the best villains in Final Fantasy ever. So that game I had to like warm up to liking it. This game I just like as soon as I started, I'm like, holy shit, this game is fucking really good. And I'm even beating it, and I feel like that. So really, it's a really confident game. The people who made it really I don't know if they're trying to prove themselves, but they are. So in terms of making a single player JRPG. So yeah, all that's really good. So the story so far is really good as well. It's right up my alley. It's very political. There's a lot of betrayal and people who once knew each other and now are enemies, but also don't want to be, possibly stuff like that. That I really dig. There's just like layers to the characters. The performances are all fantastic. They all sell their characters really well. The writing is good too. Sometimes you'll play a JRPG and sometimes like you feel like the translation from one thing to the other doesn't work in English as well.
Shout out to Koji Fox.
Koji Fox. Oh,
He's the translator.
yeah.
He helped write this game.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, definitely shout out to him because sometimes like the humor doesn't work right, or like the English voice actor is trying to do like what would be a Japanese thing to do vocally, but they're doing it as an English speaker, so it comes off fucking weird sounding. And like, there's nothing like that in this game. It's like, even the wording and like the everything is just written really well, and it seems to work really well. Maybe it's selfish of me, but works really well for like English speakers. So I've been impressed with that. The writing's been really good, and the humor's been really good, and the actors don't sound confused when they're reading the lines. Sometimes you'll, play a Kojima game, and the actors are just reading the lines, but it's like crazy sounding, because they're like, "What do you want me to? What are we doing right now?"
Right.
I think it was Mads Mikkelsen and Schmigus Regus. What the fuck's his name? We're talking about when they're acting in Death Stranding. Sometimes Kojima would be describing all the shit to them, and they're like, "Okay,
Yeah, we're not in your brain, dude."
yeah." So they were just like, "Let's just read the lines. Let's try this out," and then he'd be like, "That was good." So it doesn't sound like there's that kind of situation happening here, which I think is great. Like everything's really believable. Let's see, the mature thing we talked a little bit, but I like it. It doesn't seem too extreme as a mature theme, but I do think it benefits this world and just adds a little bit of grit to it.
Also allows for some pretty crazy scenes that I can't talk about.
Yeah, it's the struggle with this episode, but that's fine because once we actually beat it, I'm sure we talk about it on like Tastecast or something. I do like the combat. Now, before anyone wants to have that conversation, I'm open to have it, but I think it's kind of getting tired at this point. Before we talk about what Final Fantasy's combat should be, which I think we're a little late on that conversation now because Final Fantasy made the decision a while ago to become an action RPG, basically. I would take either. I like turn-based combat. I like tactical games for sure, and I like action games. I think this game definitely leans into the action quite a bit while still kind of feeling like an RPG. Mm-hmm. It still definitely feels like an action game, but there's just certain qualities about it that feel a little like, the cooldowns and stuff has a pace to it that doesn't feel like you're just spamming moves nonstop. And then obviously you have potions.
Dodge timing is definitely an action game.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So. But the action fan in me really enjoys the combat because it's, first off, the system is simple, but allows for a lot of creative combos without being too hyper. It's not like, I know a lot of people bring up Devil May Cry. It's not that hyper, but it is very actiony, and it has certain things about it that feel like it's a little relaxed. Like you don't take a shitload of damage, so when you get hit, you can kind of think about if you need to use your potion or not, unless it's some kind of big enemy you're fighting. But if you want to dodge and get perfect dodges in, it does feel gratifying because there is a big advantage to not getting hit. First off, you don't take damage, but secondly, there's this cool animation where there's like a silhouette of where you were and you bounce back out of the way, and then for a second you can hit them and do more damage. And I fucking love that because it feels awesome. And that's another thing about the combat I really like is impacts feel good, and that's not just for this game. That's something that I hope for in every game I ever play. There's some games where you just hit people and they're just standing there and their health's just going down. I fucking hate that. In shooters, in action games, whatever. In this, it feels like you're hitting people. They're flying around. There's one move early on in the game when you're using the Phoenix that you can like boost or jump at someone and then when on the ground you can like stab them on the ground, and it just feels
When
awesome.
you knock people down, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels awesome to be able to do that. And then yeah, as you unlock more moves through leveling up, you get to have even more stuff in your combos that makes it really interesting, and it gives you a really cool cinematic look to the combat. The combat flows really well, works really well with the controller, and has just enough complexity to not be boring, but also not too complex where it's like overwhelming. So yeah, I really, really enjoy the combat. I think it's really good. And the dude who made it, who also worked on Dragon's Dogma, said that this was his masterpiece as of right now in terms of his combat systems that he's made. And even though I really like Dragon's Dogma, let's see what they do with Dragon's Dogma 2 when it comes to combat. I agree. I think this is definitely the best combat system he's made. And it's really good. I really enjoy it. Not to bring up 15 again, but I get to a point in 15 where I was just like, you're constantly like teleporting around and hitting people, and I would just try and kill somebody as fast as I could. So it's hard to say that I enjoyed the combat in 15, and then I didn't even use the magic because it was stupid in that game. In this game, I like getting into a fight, and I like the challenge of the fights. And I like boss battles and all sorts of stuff. So like it's nice to be able to enjoy the combat in a game. Not that that's a rare thing for me, but anyway. Yeah, so combat's really good, story's good, character's good, voice acting's good, music's great, the world is awesome. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really missed that we can't talk about, or that we can talk about, because obviously I don't want to talk about the story too much, but where I am at with the story so far is still a lot of like mystery and unveiling things. Yeah, so I have a lot of questions I need answered still, but I do like where it's going. I do like the characters that have been introduced so far, and I definitely will keep playing this game because it's really solid and still, in my opinion, so far, could be like top 5 games easily of this year, and I don't know where it'll land, but so far it's definitely one of the best games already that I've played in 2023. So
yeah, this year's going to be really, really hard.
Really hard because I'm also really enjoying Remnant 2. I feel like I'm going to really enjoy Baldur's Gate 3 because I've already played it, and I really enjoyed it when I played it in early access when the cutscenes were broken, so I'm sure it's a lot better now that it's finished. I also really liked Dead Space Remake, and there's a lot of good games this year. And then I keep bringing this up every episode we do, but like Stalker 2, Alan Wake 2, fucking Starfield I've been now sold on, so I want to play that. Bethesda, don't fuck me on that.
Please.
Something else, Zelda, luckily I don't care that much about, so I'm not too worried about playing that, but everyone says it's great. Too many good games.
Yeah.
What's the other game? There's some other game coming out soon. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is a great game, and I've been really enjoying it, and I want to keep playing it. And I really wish I had more time in this last month to have played it more, because I played in the last 2 days to kind of get myself refreshed on it to do this episode and be able to talk about it a little more refreshed. And I was playing. I was like, I just want to play this now.
Yeah.
So, which is rough because I want to play that right now. I also want to play Remnant 2. And now I got to play Outriders, which is fun. The game's fun. But we'll grade it. But at some point. I don't know if anything else to add to it. Game is great so far. It's like really fucking good. That's my impressions. It's really fucking good.
Yeah, I would say it's a reason to buy a PS5. So,
Sure.
I mean, obviously it's coming to PC probably in like a year, but
Yeah, if you don't wait that long and you're even thinking about it, though, I guess we'll jump into recommendations. If you're thinking about buying a PS5, this is a reason to buy one.
Oh,
so
100%.
there's a recommendation. Do you have anything else you want to say before we jump into recommendations?
no, I said a lot.
Yeah. That's why I tried to speed it up a bit, too, but I was chiming in while you're talking, so it's fine. Let's jump into recommendations, though. I have to say it, if you like Final Fantasy, you should play it.
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of people were going to do that anyway and already have. But even if you're looking at it and you're like, well, it's not like the older ones, you should still play it, because Final Fantasy is not just the combat system. In fact, I think the combat system in Final Fantasy is probably one of the the least important things about what makes Final Fantasy Final Fantasy. I know it might sound blasphemous, but there's a lot of things that carry over from Final Fantasy to Final Fantasy that are not the combat system. And every Final Fantasy's combat system changes from the last one. We've just, traded turn-based to action, and I get some people might not want to do that, but they've accommodated you with certain systems in the game that can make the combat less of a burden if you don't do that.
We didn't even have this conversation when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, and everyone was fine with that. So I don't know why this game is the target.
It kind of happened a little bit, but it was very brief. It was whispered and disappeared in the wind. So, this game, people have been pretty... there's people trying to get like a review bomb going with the game too, because they're like, fuck that, they fucked us over. I'm like, if you're that quick to try and betray some brand and company that you were so into before by trying to sabotage their game because they changed one thing about their game, I don't think you're a real fan of Final Fantasy. I think if you're a real fan of Final Fantasy, you wouldn't be so quick to try and fucking sabotage a game by review bombing it. I think those people are just looking for something to get behind and protest. So anyway, jumping back into recommendations, if you're into JRPGs, if you're into medieval fantasy games, if you like action games, I would recommend this to you. Even if you're not a JRPG dude, you might be into playing this.
Honestly, I think I would just say RPG, because it takes so much inspiration from Western RPGs as well.
Yeah.
So.
Sure, but there might be some people who are like, I'm not really into Final Fantasy games. This one might change your mind for sure, because it carries over a lot of the elements of the storytelling of Final Fantasy, the big epic scenes and the grand music and scale of visuals, but
the depression.
But it's also a game where like you're running at people, you're dodging their swings, you're hitting them, you're comboing them, you're throwing them in the air. So yeah, it's basically an action game. So definitely check it out. Yeah, if you like action RPGs, I'd recommend it to you for sure. If you like story-heavy games, I'd recommend it to you. It's got a lot of cinematics in it, and I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's just a movie." I'm okay. I'm okay with good cinematics. I like movies. I like video games. I'm okay with video games having long cinematics. I'm very okay with that. As long as the story's good, I don't care. As long as I do get to play the game, which you do get to play the game. So, yeah, if you're somebody who likes a good story that takes its time to unravel itself, definitely check it out. Oddly enough, I'm going to loosely say if you were a fan of The Witcher 3, this game isn't the same because it doesn't have the same combat system, but you might be able to appreciate it because it is an adult dark fantasy, and I feel like it's inspired by it in some ways. So you might be able to get some fun out of it. I think you might appreciate it, even though it's not an open world game like The Witcher 3, but it's definitely a dark fantasy like it. Yeah, and then it's not the core of the game, but it happens. If you like kaiju battles, if you like, I hate that word too, but I'll use it because everybody knows what it means. If you like big spectacle fights where like big monsters are fighting, or you played Metal Gear Solid 4 and you like the scene with Rex and Ray, which you should, that scene was fucking sick. And you want more of that, this has stuff like that in it. So I'd recommend it to you.
Yeah, so I mean, some of these are just going to be reiterations, but yeah, if you like a high dark fantasy setting similar to that of like The Witcher or Game of Thrones, this is 100% that. If you like political stories, this is literally a bunch of different kingdoms fighting over resources basically. So with, like you brought up, backstabbing and betrayal and stuff like that mixed in with making new allies that used to be enemies, stuff like that. So I mean, like, if you're into that kind of stuff, Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy Tactics, storytelling, type stuff, that's here. If you like action RPGs that focus around the life or the of a character, or even just kind of put out there a chronicle of a person's life. That's what this game basically is. You go through multiple stages of Clive's existence, from being a teenager to 20s to 30s. Also, if you like an older main character, it's kind of weird for Japanese games a lot of times. So
Having a character that's not older than 22, yeah.
yeah, Clive is very much in his 30s. So
And I like how that's an older character
yeah.
in their 30s. That's still a kid, but in anime and everything Japanese, fucking everyone's a teenager, and then there's like someone who's like 24, and they're like, "Oh, dude, they're so mature."
OG.
I'm like, that person's not even fully developed yet.
I had something else. You kind of brought it up, but yeah, if you like giant spectacle fights that are somewhat engaging, but definitely more of like the spectacle of the scene. I.e., like a God of War, for example, where you have these huge fights and stuff. So I would recommend it. And then I think that's pretty much all I got. Trying to blank right now.
Perfect. All right, so let's jump into grades. You did impressions first, so I will grade it first. I want to be clear. I haven't beaten the game. I'm playing it, so this grade is a grade on my impressions of the game, and it will likely change upon finishing the game. But in the month of July, when I was playing Final Fantasy 16, my overall impressions and the grade I would give it is a solid A. I'm really enjoying the game. I don't think I talked about anything bad about this game. I like everything about it. It's fucking solid, and yeah, the game can either get better or worse. And so we'll see what happens, but I don't think it's going to get worse. And so, yeah, I feel confident saying A, because it's definitely one of the standout games I've played this year, and I play all the games every year. So if a game stands out, it's really doing something interesting. But yeah, everything about the game I really enjoy a lot, without any compromise. So game's fucking great, and so far, and yeah, A.
I mean, same disclaimers. I haven't beaten the game, and my grade will very likely change depending on the ending of the game.
Your grade is for half of the game.
Yeah. I'm teetering somewhere between a B plus and an A minus. I do think there are some parts of the game that feel a little slow.
At random, yeah.
Yeah, but that being said, I am having a good time. I'm just gonna go ahead and say A minus. I wanted to say B plus, but I also don't really have that many negatives. I'm also trying to just be reserved, because I already know the second half of the game is probably going to ramp up. So
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird spot to be in to review this game.
I'd probably be at A minus myself if I didn't think that because I know we're kind of, the only thing I think we're kind of different on is the combat system.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'm just not in love with it.
But I really like it.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy playing the game. So yeah, because I could see myself going A minus if there's something that wasn't great about it, but I'm really enjoying everything.
Right, and obviously like length of playtime too, and
Yep.
stuff we've experienced. So.
Oh yeah, I could play like 5 hours into it and be like, you know what, maybe I went a little hard on that A.
But the moments in the game, if I grade those alone, they are somewhere between an A and A plus. So they're great.
Oh yeah, I've seen some A plus stuff in the game.
But yeah, A minus for now. I will update you when I beat the game.
Yeah, same. All right, well, our not having beaten the game impressions of the game so far, A minus. But let us know in the comments what do you guys think about Final Fantasy 16 so far. Please, no spoilers. Let us enjoy the game. If you like the game a lot, or even like it enough, and you want us to experience it ourselves, let us do that. But let me know in the comments if you're playing the game currently, if you're planning on playing the game, if you play the game and stop playing it, or if you've beaten the game. What do you think of it? What do you like about it outside of any spoiler stuff, please? And maybe don't like it. Maybe you fucking hate that they got away from the turn-based combat, or maybe you don't like the pacing of the game. Maybe it's not open enough for you. Let me know. We're open to it as long as we're respectful. That's all that matters. But yeah, let me know everything you think about in the comments below when it comes to Final Fantasy 16. Do you love it? And have you beaten it? But that's going to do it for this episode of Game of the Month. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this episode. Make sure to check out our other episodes. Check us out on our socials and streams, link down below. You can talk to us anytime, all the time on our Discord, link down below. And we have... we're on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. If you prefer to listen to us in audio form, this will be there, and many of our other shows. And we have a Patreon if you like to support the channel more than liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing if you're brand new. Also follow my TikTok, link down below, where I make shorts covering a lot of topical things that are happening right now that I want to devote a whole ass video to, but I got like a minute's worth of things to say about it. Check that out. And if you're curious about why that's not here on YouTube on Shorts, for some reason I cannot upload videos in the Shorts format on YouTube. It's just a me thing apparently, which is really annoying. To make a lot of shit on TikTok I would love to be putting on YouTube. Yeah, but I've been Seth, and thank you, Chevy, for joining me for this conversation and leading the conversation for the most part. You've played the game more than I have, so that's fine. And thank you all for joining us for this conversation. Until the next episode, which I hope is just going to be in a normal taste cast. Have a good one, guys, and take it easy.